there is a fair amount of anecdotal evidence when it comes to exercise-induced immunosuppression. So in other words, large amounts of exercise, intense exercise, can produce a suppression in the immune system, resulting in a greater risk of infection. And it's brought forward a theory known as the open window theory. So the theory is that with moderate exercise, you do have a boost in immune response, which is a good thing. And then post-exercise, that will eventually go back to normal again. So you have a decreased risk of infection. Now with the intense exercise, so generally large volumes as well as high intensity, you do have this immune response, an increase in immunity, but then after the exercise you have this depression or suppression of the immune system, and this is known as the open window. And that in that point of time, that might last for a few hours, you are possibly susceptible to attack from a pathogen because the immune system is weaker, it's suppressed, and therefore the risk of getting infection is higher. This is known as the open window theory, and it's possibly mediated by the ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropin hormone, which acts on the adrenal cortex, and the release of corticosteroids, and as well as cortisol. So you have a high cortisol response, and that can have a depressive effect on the immune system. Upper respiratory tract infections are really the bane of any athlete because they interrupt training. They can be a precursor to more serious infections like flu or cold, and can disrupt training. So you always hear the athletes complain about, oh, I've got a sore throat, my nose is runny, so on. These are upper respiratory tract infections. And it's been shown that these infections, you have a greater risk when you're sedentary. That risk decreases during moderate exercise, but then increases quite steeply with high volume, high intensity exercise, and hence the curve is shaped like a J. And one piece of research by Nyman found that after a marathon, 13% of the participants reported an upper respiratory tract infection 1 week after the race, whereas he did have a control group of people who didn't race and they only had 2%. So the assumption is that these two groups are mixing with the same people and hence have the same level of risk, but the marathon runners ended up getting sicker by 6 times or so. And but again, you need to take these experiments for what they are, in that it's very hard to control who the participants get in contact with, because the fact is that the reason you get sick is that you're in contact with other people, and you get the illnesses from those other people, and hence that's why flu and cold spread so quickly within schools and workplaces and so on, because everyone tends to get them. So yes, there does seem to be some evidence showing that with really high intensity, large volume exercise, you can be more susceptible to upper respiratory tract infections because the immune system is depressed. So the question is, does this apply to broader immune function? So viral infections like Epstein-Barr, which is that's glandular fever, and chronic fatigue syndrome. Are people who are chronically active, doing high intensity exercise, are they more susceptible to this? The research shows probably not, but again, it's pretty thin on the ground as to whether that this is the case. So the jury is still open in terms of these more chronic infections.